and the superintendent Elgin New Lebzik, and this is probably my third attempt to record this. As you know, many of you are probably struggling with getting a block of uninterrupted time. I certainly am. But the point of this particular webinar presentation is on conducting a better meeting. And if you take a look at the picture, the point of this is to try to avoid that meeting where it feels like you'd rather have a root canal than sit through it any longer. And I'm sure you've all been at the meeting where you end it with a classic, "Are there any questions?" And you can see people looking across the room, staring at each other with, "Don't you dare ask a question." So I'm going to go over some strategies to make meetings more effective, more useful, and hopefully make people feel like time's not being wasted. But let's start with a little humor first. Turn on my audio share.
I was on this date the other night, and this restaurant.
All right, guys, you guys ready to get started?
Hang on a second.
Trip, you ready to get started, buddy?
Okay. Hey, you guys, we're all here. We should start.
All right, thanks for coming, guys. I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk about some ideas for the marketing strategy this year. So if you got one, just throw it out there. I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, how long is this meeting supposed to last? The schedule wasn't exactly clear.
Should be out of here in 30.
Is that approximate or?
Hey guys, sorry I'm a couple minutes late. I got caught in traffic.
7 minutes, actually.
What's that?
Couple is 2.
So what we're doing is we're just coming up with some ideas for our new marketing strategy.
Sure.
So, anyone?
I think we should implement Pinterest.
Ooh, that's a fun idea.
What about a publicity event in the park?
Interesting. But how are you going to plan around the weather? What if it rains?
So we'll party in the rain.
Okay, just want to emphasize there's no bad ideas here. We're just brainstorming. So.
Yeah, I'm just really thinking it'll be a huge waste of money to try to plan around the weather.
Yeah, okay, we get your concerns. Nancy, thank you.
Okay, anyone else have an idea? Ephraim?
I've always wanted to see rain fall down all at once in a big splash instead of small drops over time. I mean, think how it could impact the irrigation system.
Okay, Terry?
Well, I have an idea from my previous job that I had last year. Let me take that back a little bit. I have this wonderful idea, but it doesn't really make sense unless I just take it back a second and bring it forward together. It was like 3 weeks ago that I remember he said something that I couldn't understand.
Hold on a second, Terry. Hold on. Thanks for pointing. Here's what we need to do. Okay. Lauren, you got this? We do a video submission contest on YouTube.
Oh, that's been done.
It'll be on Facebook, it'll be on Pinterest, it'll be on
If
Twitter.
we do something with technology, we lose the senior demographic.
So you guys want to see an example?
Should we be moving on to the next topic? I mean, it's already quarter after.
Quarter after. That's funny.
Who knows how to put this on the screen? Up there, because you're not going to be able to, I want you to see all the details. We have a cable. Does this cable work?
I think that's power.
I don't know if on the there's an
This one.
HDMI
That
port,
cord's not going to be long
in
enough.
the back.
Does that
there
remote
could be
go to
like
the
2 or 3,
TV?
like HDMI 1.
Plenty of time,
HDMI
guys.
2,
No rush.
HDMI
This isn't
3,
working.
I got a
and
green
then they
marker.
coincide
Call the
with
IT
each
guy.
other with,
Wait,
there's
turn
also,
what off and back
what
on?
do you call it? S-video.
Hello?
Okay, I've got it working.
Hit play. Okay, now imagine hundreds of those floating around the web. Do you want to watch it one more time?
No, please.
Trip, I think you're onto something with this idea. I really like it. Carol, did you get that down?
Yeah, got it.
Sorry, what is C-test up sub YT pros?
Well, I'm abbreviating to make room for all these great ideas. Contest, uploading it to YouTube, funniest, and you get a prize.
Wait, where are the other ideas?
And time.
Wait, where y'all going? We still have 100% of the things to accomplish.
So I'm sure all of you can relate to that video in one way or another, and I'm sure that you can think of different people that might be the negator, maybe occasionally can be a dominator if you're honest with yourself. But we want to avoid having meetings that seem a bit dysfunctional. So in this presentation, I'm going to cover 3 different areas in which you can make your meetings more effective. One is what you do before, one is what you do during, and what's one you do to make sure some action comes up because of the meeting. So as one last bit of humor here, if you take a look at the little clip there, This month's business meeting is the same as last month's business meeting, but with many more problems. So we want to avoid a meeting that doesn't accomplish anything and we just end up covering the same things over and over again. So we'll start with what you do before the meeting. And there's two things you can do. One is send out information ahead of time, and one is to collect input prior to the meeting. The point of sending out information ahead of time is that it kind of prevents your meeting from seeming like a newsreel, like sharing stuff that doesn't really need a lot of back and forth and discussion, information that can be accomplished with text or email. And I'm sure it's a criticism that you have heard before. Why did we have a meeting? This could have just been an email. So taking some time to think about that information that you don't really need to discuss, you're just informing people. It also gives people something to digest and prepare for the meeting. And I'll get into later how for some people it really makes a difference. So, and the other bit is gathering information before the meeting, and I'll get into it later, but doing this will help you kind of be better prepared and have a better feel for your audience. And there's several tools that you can use for this: Office 365, Flipgrid, Teams chat. There's different ways to get that information or good old conversation with your staff. Gathering that information ahead of time might help do a few things. So why do we put information out and why do we collect it? One is avoid wasting time talking about issues that there's already agreement on. Sometimes you'll think that there's quite a bit of separation on this issue, or that we're going to need to really sort through this, and you send out some questions and you find out that there really isn't a need to go into it, and you can just say, based on the survey results, we all kind of feel this way, so this is what we're going to do. So you can go on to the topic in which there might be a little bit more need for discussion. It also helps you get on point with the discussion a little faster. I'm sure you've had a lot of it before where you're like, I'm going to open up the floor, let's hear what your opinions are, and you hear little crickets having a party in the back before you hear anybody talk. And that happens. And sometimes by having that information yourself, you can be like, hey, Susie, I know that you feel such and such. Would you elaborate? Sometimes you can use that pre-information to kind of pull people in the conversation and get it going. Sometimes people can also see, depending on how you set it up, what other people's input are before going in there and kind of be a little more informed. And getting an accurate picture of what staff are thinking. Let's be honest, sometimes when you sit in the meeting, you don't really get a good picture of what people are thinking. It might be because of that dominator that I referred to before, kind of taking over everything. And so you think that everybody agrees with something, but they really don't. I do want to caution you that when you send out information to collect it, such on like developing a calendar and different things, that you communicate its intent fairly precisely, because these can sometimes backfire if people think you're sending out a survey to get their vote, and that like whatever gets the most votes is going to win, and that's going to be the decision. If you're collecting it just to get input and inform your decision, make it very clear that's the intent of it. Misunderstanding the purpose of a survey can sometimes lead to some misunderstanding and hard feelings if they think it's used for one purpose and they don't see it used in the way they think it's supposed to be used. All right, one more bit of humor.
Allow me to play devil's advocate here, but allow me to be a dick for a second, but with no consequences.
Let's pull back on that for a second. I fell asleep while you were talking and I have no idea what's happening. Huh?
I've got a stupid question. It's actually like a really smart question, but I was wondering if I say stupid beforehand, does that make me like kind of modest? Is that like sort of charming thing to do, right?
Let's pick that up in the next meeting. I need a few days to figure out what the hell you're talking about.
But will this scale? One of the managing directors once used that phrase in a meeting, so now I use it all the time.
Sorry, this is just a work email I have to answer. I'm actually playing words with friends with everyone else in this meeting but you. Do you know a 4-letter word for long-winded?
There's an outside chance you might be right. You're wrong. You're definitely wrong.
I think what you're trying to say is, so what I'm gonna do is take that idea and then make it sound like it was mine.
Let's try to make this viral, okay? I just heard about this site called reddit.com. Can we get on there?
I think we should make this a cross-platform opportunity. I watch Shark Tank.
Let's take this offline. Yeah, can we pick this up again? Just maybe 15 minutes after Never Again.
Well, that's one idea. It's actually the one idea that sucks the most, so thank you.
This might be off topic. This is off topic, and it's gonna be a while.
All right, great meeting. So just please send me all your ideas before EOD. This meeting could have just been an email, but I'm very lonely.
All right, reasons we collect information multiple ways. One of the things is that people will not always speak up at the meeting, and some people are just not comfortable doing so. So that's one of the reasons. It's a good way to try to get accurate picture of what staff are thinking. Now, granted, you're going to want to have a couple of go-tos. You don't want to have a new way to provide input every time, but having a kind of a cross section allows people to give it verbally or through a form or whatever. Having some variety is useful. And like I said, some people just aren't comfortable talking in front of other people, and even if you get your climate and culture all set up perfect, you still might not really say much at a staff meeting. And I don't care how much you do of collecting information, pulling input from people, there will probably always be at least one person that says, you didn't get my input, and blah, 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 whine. And this collecting input beforehand can really help minimize that feeling that they weren't listened to. Because some of those people that aren't comfortable sharing in front of everybody or whatever reason, they might leave the meeting and say, well, Mr. Ludvigson just made the decision he wanted to make anyway, and I didn't have any input in it. And this might be despite the fact that you sent a survey, email, had a conversation. Sometimes that happens, but like collecting this information beforehand can sometimes minimize that kind of go-to of nobody asked me what I think. And lastly, you also have the people that dominate the conversation. Perhaps the reason those people above aren't talking because they never got a word in edgewise. I kind of remember one staff meeting where it came after several weeks of very, very cold North Dakota weather, and we had inside recess like just about every day of the week. And at the one staff meeting, this person was making a pitch that no matter what the temperature is, 20 below, kick the kids outside. It's North Dakota. You need to be North Dakota tough. And this person got on quite a soapbox, and nobody really said anything to him. But as soon as the meeting ended, people came up to me and were like, we're not going to do that. I have a kid in kindergarten. I don't want them out when it's 20 below. And I remember saying to that person, why didn't you say anything at the meeting? Well, I didn't want to argue with so-and-so. And I know for a fact the person who kind of got on that soapbox left the meeting thinking, wow, everybody agrees with me. I represented the voice of the teachers, so to speak. And when in truth, a lot of the people were thinking, she's crazy. But they didn't want to say it at the meeting. So sometimes collecting this input beforehand can help you with that. You can say, like there was a majority of you voted that this was a bad idea. So like, I understand what your opinion is, but you have that ammunition a little bit, and it can help you kind of guide and facilitate the discussion if you have some of that beforehand. So getting people's opinions isn't always as easy as asking them for it. So next slide here, making your meeting time count. As you can see here, we all hate to be part of that meeting that's like meeting that will never end. My Lord, it goes on and on, my friend. And there's some ways that you can make it so that meeting times feel productive and don't feel like a waste of time, and generally not make you feel like you'd rather have a root canal. So I'll go over 4 different strategies: having a set agenda, managing your time, allowing others floor time, defining clear actions before dismissing. So having a set agenda. I know some people have different opinions about having a set agenda, but I think even just because you have an agenda doesn't mean you need to treat it like a stone tablet chiseled in, can never change. But it gives you specific topics that people can expect and specific topics that you're going to have. This helps people avoid throwing you off topic, which kind of leads into the second one, surprise problems. So Some people like to use a meeting as a time to kind of spring a problem on you. What are you going to do about this? Or this incident happened. What's going on with it? And you're like, what are you talking about? You don't even know about it. So having a set agenda allows you to know what's going to come up. It allows you to help keep people on topic, because you're going to like, that's not a part of the agenda. Not saying you never go off topic, but I think we all hate being surprised and jumped. And that includes our staff. They don't like to be jumped with a topic and, what are you even talking about? I don't know. 3 allows everybody to be prepared for the meeting. As I was saying in the previous slide, some people just don't feel so comfortable sharing things at a staff meeting. They might have some important things to say, and it might not even be that they're shy. They might just be that they take more time to process. It takes them a while to figure out how they feel. Perhaps they like to look some things up first, and putting that agenda out ahead of time, even the act of collecting information kind of gives them a hint, allows them to kind of collect their thoughts and then become a much more productive member of the discussion then. I find meetings also make it helpful to spot if you have not allowed enough time for the agenda. Like occasionally I'll even put timestamps if I'm worried about there. Again, not intended to be like you only have a minute for this, but like you can see as you go through it, geez, I need an hour for this meeting and I only have a half. And I'll get into this in the next slide, but having that knowledge, sometimes it's better to have a follow-up meeting rather than just stay there until you get everything done. So with that, managing your time. So I encourage people listening to this to have a set time limit. That does a few things. One, it makes sure that you know that you need to get done by such a time, and it kind of helps people cut down on rambling, maybe helps you get more to the point. And it helps reassure people that, if I have an appointment at 4:30, I know that Mr. Ludvigson is going to end the meeting at 4:15. And if I really have to split, I can, because I know he's going to wrap it up soon. So that provides some reassurance to people and avoids that meeting that will never end syndrome. So having set limits is very important on time. You can always schedule a follow-up meeting a lot of the times. I mean, I'm not saying never go 5 or 10 minutes over, but like sometimes it's better just to reschedule the meeting. People don't like to feel like they're held hostage. I'm sure you've been part of a meeting where it's like, I really need to go. So having that set time, I think, is very helpful. Now, if it's committees or different things, I highly recommend having established frequencies. I think giving people fair warning, you have your staff meeting on the second Tuesday of the month, typically, not set in stone. You do it at 3:30 because that's when people are available. I think that's much more effective than just saying, meeting later this week, random time, random day. That just helps people kind of anticipate things and be more on point. Allowing floor time. Now, I'm sure we've all had the experience where we feel like we're doing all the talking. We're frustrated that nobody contributes to the conversation. You're wondering why not more people get involved in the discussion, and you just kind of feel like you're up there having a sermon. Now, I find that allowing people to have floor time is very helpful. So if somebody really has an issue with recess and they bring it up to you, be like, all right, I'm going to put you on the agenda. You can talk about how you notice that nobody's locking the door or whatever it is. That does a few things. First, it gives you a break from doing all the talking, and it gives that person a very specific job. It's not too much different than the teachers in the classroom assigning collaborative work. If there isn't a clear purpose or job that they have, it's a little hard to be engaged and it's a little easier to be disengaged. So allowing other staff to have that floor time. And one easy way to do it, if not everybody wants to talk, is also assigning roles, as you can see there. Having somebody in charge of notes, having a timekeeper. Sometimes they'll have an enforcer who enforces rules, establish norms. Giving that person a specific job makes it easier to know like how they're supposed to be engaged in the meeting, what they might need to do. Some people do better in those specific roles than others, but it's more like just to set expectations and how you want the meeting run. Again, I think this really helps with staff engagement, because I think it's easy if the administrator's doing all the talking or whoever it is to kind of sit back, tune out, just watch the clock and be like, oh, can't wait until 3:30 so I can go and go on with the rest of my life. All right, continuing on. So I think this is a really important one, and thing that's worked pretty well for me is ending the meeting with an action list. Now, obviously, you don't need to do this all the time with everything, but sometimes we talk and talk, especially if you find yourself talking about the same thing through multiple meetings. Did anything happen? You might have had a wonderful discussion, a very thought-provoking discussion, but when the meeting's over, like, it's over, nothing else happens. So what this little picture here says is, I'd like to schedule a follow-up meeting with you because I know you won't decide anything in the meeting we're about to waste an hour of my life on. And again, let's be honest with ourselves. We've been in meetings like that where we talk and talk and nothing actually happens. And like I said, it might have even felt like a productive conversation. So my recommendation is you kind of end the meeting. Sometimes I do it like an action list. So we talked about needing to put in the announcements that we have to make sure this happens. Well, who's going to do that? Susie? All right. It also lets you kind of divide up the work, which kind of goes back to the previous slide of the floor time. Not everything needs to be done by you. So like if there's some jobs like, you know, you're doing a positive promotion and somebody's on the positive promotion committee, they can take care of that. And they can see that if you're taking like 5-6 duties off the discussion, that makes it very visible as well. It also gives you something like, is this getting done? Is this getting done? You can check on it later and see if like something's coming of this, because you talked about who was going to do it, when they were going to do it. And so when you meet again, it allows you to be like, hey, where are we on this? And you can count on something having happened. It can be very defeating to come back to the next meeting after you spent that hour of your life wasted on it, and everybody just finds themselves looking at each other like, I didn't do it. Did you do it? I didn't know I was supposed to do it. And it has to do with that clear expectations things too. Like some people just need to know what it is that it's expected and when it's due, and they'll handle it pretty good. But if you just kind of leave it open-ended and vague, it's kind of like a New Year's resolution where, you know, like, what goal? Oh yeah, I was supposed to. So be very clear about what it is and when it needs to get done can be very helpful for making your meeting feel like it accomplished something. It also gives you something to report later. Oh, what did the collaborative committee do? Well, we did this and this and this. And you can be very precise in that. So kind of continuing on that follow through. So if you have those specific expectations and assigned tasks, it makes it easier for you as an administrator. Go back to your meeting out, well, who was supposed to do this? In that time in between meetings, particularly if like it's a committee or something, you'd be like, hey, Dr. Johnson, did you call the fire chief to schedule a fire day thing, you know? And if things are getting addressed, it makes it easier for you to communicate that you're doing something productive with your time. It's not a waste of time. Now, if you do go through the effort of putting out an agenda and information ahead of time, sometimes you might need to direct staff back to the resources that you provided. Otherwise, like going through all the effort to list out those things ahead of time, those things that could have been an email that you didn't need to discuss at the meeting. Sometimes that will end up being a waste of effort if you don't sometimes take a minute to prompt staff to go back and read it or to look at the agenda and things like that. So don't be afraid to point that out sometimes too, like not to squash them from sharing opinion or something, but if it's simply because they didn't open up the agenda, don't be afraid to pull them back to that. Now, without these different things, people might not take your meeting seriously. They might not take participation seriously. Why participate in discussion? Nothing's going to come of this. So it really just is a good way to make sure that something constructive is happening. So normally, I would have questions on this slide, but if you do, you have my email there. you're free to send me an email. I hope you found this constructive. Normally I do a little discussion with it, so I just kind of went through the material. But there are ways to make your meetings feel more productive, and what you do before the meeting to gather and distribute information matters. What you do during the meeting to pull your staff into the conversation and to set clear expectations about what's going to happen, and keeping specific timetables matters. And your follow through after the meeting certainly matters in order to really convince people that that time was well spent and really prove that it was worth their time. So with that, take care, have fun, and stay healthy out there.